Beyond the fence line, where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun. The sagebrush whispers, the rivers hum. This land's a story just begun. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. Boots hit gravel and the prairie sings. With every hoofbeat, the frontier rings. From ranchers' hands to miners' veins, the spirit of the West remains. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. So come ride with me through the dust and time. Find the soul of Wyoming beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun.
My mic was muted. Hey, good morning, Wyoming. Oh, another one of those days where I'm glowing too much. I don't know what's going on here with this light up here behind me. I guess I'm just angelic today. Anyways, good morning, Wyoming. Good to see you. Hope you guys are having a great and fabulous week. Here we are on Thursday, Policy Chat. Where do I stand on? And yes, today we're going to talk about that wonderful thing that we all love. We're going to talk about taxes. So I want to set a little bit of framework this morning before we talk about taxes, because it's important to go, well, first of all, why do we pay taxes, right? What's the proper role of government in my mind? What should taxpayers be paying for and not be paying for? You see, over the years, over the decades, government has become responsible for more and more and more of our daily lives, right? Originally, government was designed to protect life, liberty, and property. That was essentially the role of government, and perhaps infrastructure, right? But now, everywhere we look, government is responsible for it. Government is responsible for healthcare. Government is responsible for education. Government is responsible for everything in our daily lives. As a result of this, right? Taxes. It costs something for government to be involved and have its fingers in everything. So we're going to break down what I think the role of government should be, and that taxes are a tool, not a blank check. Now, if you look around us, government operates in the opposite way, right? Our taxes, especially at the federal level, are nothing but a blank check. In fact, there's no taxes left, and they just keep spending anyways. And I've talked about that in other episodes, so I won't get onto that soapbox this morning. I will confess to you though that I actually this morning was kind of one of those mornings where you just kind of wanted to stay under the warm covers and ignore the cold wind outside. But here I am nonetheless, and looking forward to talking to you guys about taxes. I am Joseph Kibler, your people's candidate for Wyoming governor. We're unaffiliated, no parties, no PACs, just you, the people. You are our echo chamber, and you are the ones that we want to serve, and that's why we're running. So with that, let's look at the role of government and how it pertains to taxes. And then we're going to talk about taxes and where I stand on all of the different taxes that we all get to pay every day. In fact, I'm sure I'm actually, you know what? I am getting taxed right now as I sit here, because after all, I am using electricity, right? So we are getting taxed. I'm practically getting taxed to breathe, even though I'm here in Wyoming. So the proper role of government was really, really simple in the beginning. Is to protect life, liberty, and property. In other words, general safety and security, right? And to uphold the basic rule of law. That was the role of government. And I think the role of government too probably spills over into infrastructure as well. But what we don't realize is, guess what? Things like healthcare was not the role of government. The U.S. Constitution does not guarantee health care. The Wyoming Constitution does. So at the state level, we have health care provisions in our Wyoming Constitution. But health care has become a role of government, along with so many other things. And of course, all of these things that become role of government have to be taxed in order for it to operate. So when government expands its role, taxes inevitably grow, right? Bigger government does not create better outcomes. We know this. We talk about this all the time. But what we don't do is reduce government. And if you look around us the last several decades, and well, I'm 46 years old, so some of you watching this might have more years on you. And so you'll say, well, Joseph, it's been going on longer than that. I'm sure it has been. But from my experience, the overreach has gotten so big, and whether it's at the state level or the federal level, and we're all paying for that overreach. We're paying for them to be in our pockets. But a government that can expect freedom and respect the people's wallets, I think that's where we can really define the limits when it comes to government, when it comes to tax. And there are all sorts of different types of taxes. We're going to talk about those today. But I think the reason why I wanted to talk about sort of like the root problem, and that is the size of government first, because we have to understand how we got here. And that is that we, the people, began to turn over essentially all responsibility to government. Government was, of course, more than happy to take on that responsibility. And you wonder and you look at policies and politics around us in 2026 and you go, why is it that no matter who we elect, we just get more of the same, but just in a different way, right? We're so proud that we're reducing spending over here, but what we're not telling you is we're really just moving that spending over here. So we're still spending the money. I was honored to be the leader of a rural fire department for the better part of 15 years, and then I was firefighter for 20 years there. And I led that department, and I remember every single year our leaders would tell us, "Hey Joseph, you've still got, $35,000 in the bank. We really need you to spend it because if we don't spend it, we might lose it." Oh, well, think about that for a minute. This idea that you've got extra money because you've been good with the budget, like I was at our local fire department. I was very careful with our budget because it was limited. It was a rural fire department, and I wanted to be a good steward of that so that we could, pay our folks a little bit and have the equipment that we needed. But I was always told, the month before the end of the fiscal year, "Hey Joseph, spend the rest of your money on stuff. Like, we need you to spend the money because if you don't spend it, we lose it," right? So this idea that government goes, "Well, gee, we got this extra money, we got to spend it," right? This is insane, right? You wouldn't do that in your home budget, right? Where you're like, "Oh, gee, we're at the end of the fiscal year, we better spend all of our money." You be wise with that, and we should be the same way with government. It's interesting. The Laramie County GOP had a fundraiser, the Red State Rendezvous, in the fall, and they raised a bunch of money. I thought, cool, we're going to start being effective. We're going to start being effective for the community, effective for conservatives, effective for the cause, right? So they got all this money in. And the next meeting, they immediately voted to spend all of that money, or most of it, I would say 2/3 of it, and give it to pay their state shares, which were due in 10 months. And I thought to myself, well, I understand. I guess you got to pay your state shares, right, to the state, to be in the GOP and what have you. But this is not coming due for 10 months. Why not pay, perhaps half of what you owe? That way you've got some money to be effective in the community. There's some money to run some more events, some money to do that. But no, we have it, we're going to spend it, right? And this idea, and this is what government does, is if we have it, we're going to spend it. Now, whether you like or don't like the current administration in the state of Wyoming, they don't necessarily have that mentality. Wyoming has money saved for the lean times, which I think there's wisdom in that. But so what do we do about taxes? So let's talk about, we're going to start with property taxes because that is the big thing that we're talking about here in Wyoming. So you might go, "Joseph, why don't we just get rid of it? Why don't we just cut it? Why don't we, there's all of these." What we've done with property taxes in Wyoming is now it's complicated beyond all reason, right? We've added layers and layers and layers and more layers of legislation on top of it. You got 95 different exemptions if you are lucky enough to know how to get those exemptions, right? We've got all of these different things that we can do instead of just having a simple tax system. Now, the big criminal enterprise of government has been this whole assessed value taxation, right? And you know what? There are those that will tell you, well, it's not taxation on unrealized gain. It absolutely is. I will call it what it is. Property taxes in Wyoming are taxation on unrealized gain. Just because my property has doubled in value and now you're going to tax me on that value, I haven't realized that value. I haven't sold my house. I haven't pulled equity out, but you're going to tax me on something that is just in air. You're going to tax me on nothing. How I guess you could say how democratic or how left of or liberal of an idea is that? That you're going to tax me on something that I haven't even earned. Tax me on something I haven't even realized. And this is the real problem for people. You know what, you guys? A lot of people say, well, especially people on fixed incomes like Social Security and things like that, they're really, really suffering because property taxes are increasing. Well, I will tell you this. I mean, here I am. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a father, 3 kids, wife, house, bills. It hurts me too. I mean, we technically live on a fixed income, right? Whatever I earn in my business or what have you. Um, and so for our taxes to be up, I mean, to be quite honest, our mortgage is almost $500 more a month than when we got our house. A month. Where does that $500 come from? It has to come from somewhere. Holy smokes. I mean, it's unbearable. I mean, what is that? $6,000 a year, right? That now we've got to figure out where's that going to come from on property taxes. So where do I stand on property taxes? I don't want to implement a property tax change without a plan. What does that mean? Well, let's just eliminate property taxes and see what happens. That's irresponsible governing. My first step in property tax planning would be this: go back to assessed value everywhere. So you start with, what did Joseph pay for his house? That's his taxes, that's his tax rate. Go back to that, because guess what? We could afford that. That person who bought a house 15 years ago could afford the taxes when they bought that at assessed value when they bought their home. So just roll back to assessed value. Now, I realize that in some of our depressed counties in Wyoming, that might be or might present a problem. And we're going to need to have a stopgap solution while we work on funding what property tax normally funds. But go back to assessed value. That's step one. That's always been, by the way, that has been what I have said since day one of this campaign. My position has never changed despite all of the stuff going on this year. All right. My position has never changed. Go back to assessed value. Stop taxing people on unrealized gain. That's step one. Step two, because you know what? I firmly believe we should eliminate property taxes. This idea that government can seize and sell your property to investors because you don't pay them taxes is insane. All right. It's about control. You never actually own your property. But how? So then your question is, well, Joseph, how do we eliminate property taxes? So we go back to assessed value, and then we make a plan to eliminate property taxes. What does that look like? Funding sources, right? Do we look at our mineral funds? Do we look at our tourism? Do we look at sales tax? Do we perhaps create a hybrid plan of all of the above that replaces property taxes so that people can actually own their property like they should? And by the way, I want to note this. I believe that you should own the dirt on your property, everything on top of the property. I also believe that you should own whatever is under your property. You see, in most cases, you don't have mineral rights and things like that on your property. Someone else owns those mineral rights. No, you should own everything on your property, and you shouldn't be burdened by the government to take that away from you if you don't pay your taxes. So make a plan, but don't just shift the burden. It seems so easy. Well, how about, Joseph, we just eliminate property taxes and we just move over to sales tax? That disproportionately burdens the people who struggle the most in our society and culture already. And then you're talking about double-digit sales tax across the state of Wyoming, very, very likely. Maybe even, well, not triple digit, but it would be higher. I mean, what you're talking, 10, 15, 20% sales tax? I mean, that's just insane. And while I like consumption-based taxes because it's choice-based, right? I decided to purchase that thing. And so I do like choice-based taxes on the citizen and consumer side. But let's look at expanding our core industries that already bear a great part of the taxes here in Wyoming. Let's look at removing the backstops and the red tape and the bureaucracy, and let's expand those things. Let's expand our rare earth minerals, our energy production, and all these things. And we can replace property taxes with those things, with a hybrid plan. And so when the economy is doing this, we are still stable as a state when it comes to property taxes. Let's talk about two taxes that I would eliminate. Well, I can't get, let me step back. I can't eliminate these taxes, but as a governor, I can be a voice to the federal government to eliminate these taxes. I would love to see the elimination of capital gains taxes and also complete elimination of inheritance taxes, estate taxes. Those just need to go away. That's robbery. You think about this. I work my entire life and I build something for my family, for my son, for my two daughters. You can see them here. Actually, I've got them right behind me. That's my daughter Guinevere, Gemma, and Samuel behind me. That's me and my grandfather when I was younger. I was beanpole, really skinny. Anyway, this idea that you then pass away, which is, of course, a hard enough thing in and of itself, and then the government says, well, we're going to take half of what your father built or what your mother built, and we're going to take that from you just because we can, via inheritance or state taxes, whatnot. You want to talk about stealing generational wealth from the American people? The U.S. government has been doing it for decades and decades and decades, pulling wealth out of the population via estate and death taxes. I want to see that those have to go away. And I will speak, like Joseph, the governor of Wyoming, can't do anything about that. You're right. I technically can't. But boy, I can wield a stick and I can have that discussion on the national level. I can get the governors of the states behind that, and let's push the federal government to get rid of this stuff. Capital gains tax. I take a risk or I sell a house. I take a risk or I sell a house, and the government says we get a big chunk of that. We get a huge chunk. Depending on what you make, they're going to get a massive chunk of capital gains. One thing that comes to my mind more recently is we were thankfully, finally, after many, many years, able to sell our little cabin in California where we used to live. And, we made a little money on it. We had put some money in, with stuff like that, and then you get the tax bill. The federal government says, well, we get $15,000 out of that sale of that house. Wait, what did you do? Wait, I'm trying to figure out what you did for that $15,000. Did you pay the mortgage for 20 years? Did you fix the broken things? Did you pay for the insurance? Did you help me remodel it when I remodeled it? Did you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it? I mean, and they take that from you. They take that wealth from you when you could be investing with that or providing for your family or maybe expanding your horizons and your boundaries. But no, they take that. So estate taxes, capital taxes, debt taxes need to go away. What about sales taxes, Joseph? So sales taxes are probably one of my favorite taxes, I'm going to admit. And the reason for that is it's decision-based. And I said that earlier. We have to be careful with that because before we know it, we could be seeing double-digit sales tax here in Wyoming. So we need to be careful with that. But consumption-based tax is nice because it's choice-based. I'm interested in exploring how we use sales taxes to offset some of the property taxes, but we certainly can't just go, hey, let's just cut property taxes and transfer all the sales taxes. That transfers the problem, and we need to be careful about not transferring problems with taxes. Let's talk about income taxes. We are blessed in the great state of Wyoming to be one of a few states where there's no income tax. One of the reasons that people like to come here is we have no income taxes. I would like to say we should continue no income taxes in the great state of Wyoming. But let's talk a little bit about income taxes at the federal level. I think most of us watching and listening are okay with the principle that we should pay some taxes. We should pay some taxes. We enjoy more things than we realize because of our tax dollars. And we have a beautiful, wonderful country that everyone in the world wants to come from, in a sense, because we pay taxes. And keep in mind, government has no money. So when you think that, oh, there's money in the bank from tariffs and there's money in the bank from, it all comes from you, by the way. All money that the government has, every dollar comes from you, either directly or indirectly. My tax policy thoughts have always been, for a very long time, that if you're going to tax the people, I want to see a one-page tax form. One page, and I want to see a flat tax. And you could do that flat tax based on income, and I'm not going to get into the details of that. But when it comes to income taxes, and not talking about the state, I think, if we could avoid income tax in the state, we should, and we shouldn't do it. I don't know that I'd support that. But on the federal level, simple, one page, flat tax, eliminate the, 12,000 pages of tax code now that we have in the United States? I think it's something like 12,000 pages last I checked. Yeah, 12,000 pages. I mean, I don't even know what that looks like from a practical standpoint, Eliminate it. One page, flat tax for the hardworking people of America. Keep it simple. Believe it or not, a flat tax would balance the U.S. budget very, very quickly if done correctly. So that's income taxes. Now, what about business and payroll taxes? And hidden and indirect taxes. We talk about business and payroll taxes and hidden and indirect taxes. We don't realize that we are literally taxed for everything. I mean, this cell phone, right? It has taxes on it, right? This electricity I'm using right now, it has taxes on it. The air I'm breathing, I'm sure they're taxing me for it in some way, shape, or form, right? This cord I've got, I paid sales tax on that cord, whether I bought it in a store or online or whatever. So we're taxed in every way. So business and payroll taxes, I think business taxes in general, well, that's part of a lot of how we fund our state, right? Through minerals, through land leases, through business. I think there could be a measured amount of tax there without breaking the bank. The problem that we've got on the other end of this, I believe, is, especially when it comes to things, not just business taxes, which if you run a smart business, you do a lot of things to keep a low tax burden. How does Amazon pay zero in taxes, right? There's ways to do that according to the tax code. Payroll taxes are another thing. It's a great burden to the people. I think that goes back to my flat tax argument. I would love to see payroll taxes go away completely and have that flat tax implemented and keep it simple and easy based on income. And of course, there's all types of payroll taxes, right? You get your Social Security, Medi-Cal, Medicare, all that stuff. You get a whole bunch of different types of taxes on your payroll, right? So let's just go to a flat tax system, simplify this. You could get rid of the IRS with a flat tax system. You could do the same thing with business, everything. You could just do a flat tax, a flat reasonable tax that everyone can rely on and count on. It stabilizes everything fiscally. Now, I'm not convinced we want to do that. I don't know that we want, especially at the federal level, I don't think they have an interest in stabilizing the budget or being responsible. The Pentagon hasn't provided a fiscal statement or a balanced budget or anything for like over a decade, if I remember reading correctly. They haven't passed an audit in like 10 years. And the Trump administration wants to give them now another 1/3 of a budget. So from 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion, and it's an agency that doesn't know where most of the money is at. So we need responsibility at the top if we can in order for us to have responsible tax policy, right, you guys? That's what we need. We need responsibility at the top so that we can have responsible tax policy. So, summing this up, this issue of taxes, I can't believe, man, I'm talking head already for 25 minutes. Where has the time gone? Let's sum this up. Property taxes, back to assessed value when you bought your home. Step 1. Step 2, eliminate property taxes through creating maybe perhaps a hybrid funding model that can replace those property tax fundings. Income taxes, let's stay where we are. I want to see flat rate tax across the country. We don't have income tax in this state. Let's keep it that way. Same with business payroll taxes, things like that. Let's simplify the process. Let's make it flat. Let's make it fair. Let's get rid of all of this additional bureaucracy around taxes. Let's get rid of capital gains tax. Let's get rid of estate and death taxes. Stop stealing that wealth from the people. That's where I stand on tax policy. But that also comes with reducing government, which we're going to see in February. Let's see how much the Wyoming legislature reduces government. They're under an awful lot of pressure to do so, but I have a feeling it's harder than we think. And so we're going to go after the things that are perhaps easy to cut, if you will, so that it looks good on paper. But people that work for the government want raises, need raises right now. What are we going to do about that? I read an article the other day, something about 20% raises perhaps for government workers here in Wyoming. I know none of us watching have had a 20% raise in the last few years. I'm actually thinking I've actually not had a raise since the beginning of COVID, in my company, working for myself. And in fact, I think my salary has has gone down in the last 5 or 6 years. So tough juggling act that the legislature is going to have this next session when it comes to taxes, funding, things like that. So with that, you guys, this is where I stand on taxes. I'm really, really about making it simpler, making it easier to understand, balancing budgets. By the way, whether you like what's going on in Wyoming politics or not, overall, the state, the governor, the treasurer, everyone involved has done a great job managing the money in Wyoming. We have money saved. We have a budget that is paid for. That's not the case in a lot of states. So we should be thankful for that, regardless of whether we, like everything that Mark Gordon does or what's going on in the state or the treasurer or what have you, or the political differences that we have. We are blessed in the state of Wyoming with people that have been, and we're not, again, you're not going to all agree with it, that have been good stewards overall. And we should step back from our political bias for a minute and recognize how blessed we are in the state of Wyoming when it comes to these things. So with that, I'll leave you guys with this final thought. I hope you've enjoyed this show today. January 15th, my little thing here, it says, a man who receives from God has so many riches to give to others. Oh, hey, that's kind of appropriate. That was not planned, by the way, you guys. So if we receive gifts from God, we have riches to give to others. And maybe not in tax dollars, but maybe we could give to our fellow man. Well, with that, you guys, Joseph signing off today. Tomorrow, we're going to share a Wyoming story with you guys. And then, of course, we're hopping into the weekend. You guys have a great Thursday. Take care. God bless. Bye now.
Sun up shining on a gravel drive, granddad's coffee in a styrofoam cup. Says, boy, this world will tell you keep what's yours, but that ain't how we were brought up. We bow our heads at the table, thank the Lord for the food and the fight, 'cause loving folks who love you back is easy, but that ain't walking in the light. Love your neighbor, mow his yard when he's hurting. Love your brother when he's slamming your door. Love the stranger when your pride says ignore him. Love the bitter heart twice what you did before. You can love your friends on Sunday morning, but Jesus taught a different kind of war. If you really want to shake this world for heaven, love your Says turn the other cheek ain't just a slogan. It's a narrow road you gotta pave. We pass the plates and the casseroles, fix the porch where the storm goes through. When they curse your name, you hit your knees, say, Father, bless them like you do. Love your neighbor, mow his yard when he's hurting. Love your brother when he's slamming your door. Love a stranger when your pride says ignore them. Love the bitter heart twice what you did before. You can love your friends on Sunday morning, but Jesus taught a different kind of war. If you really want to shake this world for heaven, love your enemies more. Yeah, your enemies more. She's got a Bible with a cracked leather spine, highlighter on every other page. Says, turn the other cheek ain't just a slogan. It's a narrow road you gotta pay.
You pass the plates and the casseroles, fix the porch when a storm rolls through. When they curse your name, you hit your knee,
Say, Father, bless them, love.